Hi, everyone. Oh, I just love that soothing music. It's just like, oh, I didn't want it to end. I'm Laurelyn Mears, founder of STEERus, and with me today, we've got Jing Herman, who's not only the co-founder of 28 Muses, but she's actively involved in the community building platform called Upstream. So hello, Jing.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to just ask maybe turn up a little bit volume. We had some adjustment there. It seems it got a little bit low after that video clip played.
Test,
Let's try that.
test, test. Can you hear me?
You seem a little bit faint.
Okay, I'll speak up. Is this better?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, just bring that voice out. So, with that, maybe tell a little bit to the audience about the kinds of things that have gotten you excited right now in and around community building and how you're really extending into that whole talent development place and bringing some innovation to all of it. Why don't you talk to our audience about that?
Yeah, thank you. So my background was on Wall Street as an investment banker for 8 years and then tech for a few years. But my co-founder and I have always been passionate about bringing imagination to the workplace. And really, I feel like imagination is like the source of, the fountain of innovation. So it's been really exciting to develop 28 Muses, which is a platform for, building connection and culture through art and music for corporate teams that are remote and hybrid. And a year ago, I started the Future Work community, and Laura had been an amazing member, hosting and speaking and sharing her insights. And that's been an incredible place for Future Work founders to come together and just learn from each other and share. I feel like the devil's in the details. There are a lot of buzzwords out there, but really, it's like peeling back the layers. That's what's helped us, to build connection with each other, to support each other with our future work startups, and then draw clients too, and HR leaders, talent leaders, workplace leaders, and start digging in. Like every 3 months, there seems to be a different curveball. There's been a lot of change, a lot of things to unpack.
You're only dealing with a curveball every 3 months. I'm dealing with one, it feels like, just about daily. So I don't know. What am I doing wrong? And I wanted to talk about and emphasize that too, about the community and building that ecosystem, because I've been invited to, X number of groups here and there. But one of the things I've liked about the Upstream platform and getting connected with some of the other founders that are in this space is that we are developing connections offline and online. And that's something that I haven't seen with some of the other groups that I've been in. So I really do feel like I'm part of a community and we're all moving forward together, trying to amplify each other's voices and then bring a new level of awareness to the kinds of innovation that we're bringing to the table and the types of problems we're trying to solve, because a lot of the problems do overlap, but we're coming at it in very different ways and bringing different solutions.
Yeah. I think startups, you have to eat your own dog food, right? So like even the future work community, for example, next week, I think we're going to take it up a notch. So anyone who's in New York City, we're going to do in-person IRL every Friday, lunchtime, 12 to 1. People in Jersey, Connecticut, please come, make it a day, hang out in the village, walk around Chelsea, come work. Upstream is actually going to buy a table. So any 5 people can work there for free, morning, afternoon. Otherwise, it'll be a really reasonable day pass. And then for everyone else that have FOMO, including myself who can't go, we're going to have every Friday a free virtual office for the community. So everyone who cannot meet in person in New York City, we can newbie. I'll share the link with you later. It's going to host a free virtual space. There's going to be, a hangout lunchroom and different offices. People can meet one-on-one. We can all hang out together. People can do webinars. So we have to just roll with the punches as things change, even as the community is growing bigger. We're just finding new ways to build serendipity, right? I think that's what we really want, just those moments of connection and, individual moments that then has this domino effect that could lead to big things.
So I will be at your virtual event and occasionally in the city. Right now, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the whole commute into the city. Yes, I can drive. I'm less than 10 miles outside of Manhattan, but it's not, 10 minutes or 15 minutes to drive 10 miles into Manhattan. A little longer. So I might hook up for the virtual one. But that said, let's really dive into it here and talking about some of the issues and things that people are facing right now in the workplace What have you observed, and through these conversations that you're having with not only other founders, but HR managers and people in learning and development, what are people struggling with and trying to figure out?
I think it's a number of things, right? Everyone's asking, what is the new normal? I think at this point, everyone knows people are going to either stay home permanently or stay home 3 days a week. I think just in this new reality of like, what is the best way to engage with people? What is the best way to really connect? What is the best way to get teams that have never met, new hires that have never met in person, to play well together? Yesterday I was talking to a founder who half his team is in New York, but really, before they always did in-person things in New York, everybody else might dial in, and it was like just the reality that other people were left out. Now he's really being really conscious and mindful on, doing virtual events, even though half the team is in New York, but making all events virtual so that everyone can really participate equally. I think that's huge. I think that's kind of like this, pivotal moment where, even IRL teams are realizing, actually for the whole team to be more cohesive, including their consultants and fractional workers and developers in Ukraine and India and South America, like everyone together, it's actually cheaper, more effective, and the most inclusive to do these virtual events. And we at 20 Muses, we've done more and more events that's like midday with California, New York, and Europe, Eastern Europe, all participating at the same time.
Well, I have a key question about those virtual events, just as someone who's like everybody else on Zoom or Blue Jeans or this or that, and pretty much day and night. Are people starting to turn their cameras on now, towards this building this greater connection? And as we're looking at, well, what I'm calling the great reboot for 2022, are we seeing faces, or are we still seeing little dots with initials on the screen?
I think that really depends on the team and the culture, right? And the size of it's like a town hall versus like a small team, all hands. For us, 20 Muses, so we really strive hard to facilitate this safe environment where 100% of everyone has a camera on. We really, I think we've designed our facilitation around research that says that introverts, if they don't speak in the first 10 minutes, then they're most likely going to be silent the entire meeting. So with our facilitation in the beginning, we have everyone speak up, and we try to have everyone have 2 or 3 chances to speak. So cameras on, and the goal is to have everyone speak at least once, ideally twice. And that's, I think, the doing, the articulating, and then hearing the feedback from your colleagues. That I think is like the 3-part, formula for people feeling heard and seen, right, in this like safe space. So that's what we shoot for. But I bet, depending on the company, there are plenty of people still with cameras on.
And that's just it. Like, again, it all depends, and it's a personal choice. But I find I've been doing so many university guest lectures and this and that. And I see how the professors are so challenged, and even the teachers in some of the high school classes, that everybody's off camera and you're speaking. You have no reinforcement, no way to be able to cue in. Are people listening? Like, hello, anybody there? Hello.
It's like a webinar, right? It's a webinar where you're just speaking to the void.
Right. And you don't want to talk at people. You want to have dialogue, but it's hard to have dialogue with a screen when you're looking at yourself. Like I usually cover myself.
One thing that I think people don't talk about as much, I think companies that have really tried to build connection culture, they're going for the cooking class, the, wine tasting class, the paint and sip. And you would think those are more active experiences. But to me, I still think that they're more passive compared to what we do at 20 Muses, because if everyone is cooking the same dish and you're just following directions one step at a time, and everyone is doing the same thing, and the outcome is supposed to be the same, there's kind of like, there's not as much freedom of expression. There's no room to think for yourself. You're doing it if you're a good sport about it. But then at the end, everyone did the same thing. And then half the people are silently thinking to themselves that they didn't do it right, or they didn't do as well as the other, or they didn't do as well as the instructor. So that's why for us, for 20 Muses, all of our workshops and experiences are designed where everyone's outcome is supposed to be different, right? I think managers they might not say it this way, but I think managers, leaders, CEOs, what they really want is for their team, their employees to think for themselves. So I think really the room for expression, freedom of expression, that's where people can show what they're made of, play, experiment, show their creativity, present it in front of their team, in front of their manager. That's where they gain that confidence. And that, to us, that's what's truly interactive and engaging. And then sharing your work and then hearing from your colleagues the feedback, whether it's your story, your drawing, or your stop motion animation, or your 3D Lego model. So to us, it's like we try to keep the introductions like really, really short, so nobody is zooming out. We go straight into the doing, then we go into the show and tell and articulation, and then your colleagues kind of giving feedback and concluding and bringing it back to the workplace.
And that's what I like too. I mean, it's all about, I think, like I'm a firm believer in that, in stretching yourself, because if you keep doing the same thing the same way all of the time, what are you really learning? And the question becomes, why are you kind of refusing to challenge yourself? What's holding you back from doing that? And if you do create a safe enough space, people, have the opportunity to fail openly and be comfortable with it. Not everybody can create an awesome mobile Lego art or draw something freehand that looks good. That's not the skill set for some of us.
But actually, everyone can. I think everyone can, right? I think creativity is more and more like emphasized in society. There's been like, if you go into Audible or Amazon, type in creativity, there's so many books written on creativity. So, and you can see from research that every generation now actually values creativity more, right? And bringing it back to soft skills, like LinkedIn put creativity as like the number one soft skill, like multiple years in a row. Every company from finance to tech to media, everyone says, they want their employees to be creative. And I think we're in this like transition phase where employers unanimously want their employees to be creative. All these books are saying everyone can be creative. Everyone is creative. All humans are creative. But there's still this gap, this like soft skill gap, where people may not believe that they're creative, or only because when they were 5 years old, they felt like they were bad at drawing, or when they were in first grade, someone, the kid next to them drew better than them, and they're like, oh, I'm not good at drawing. And then you carry that baggage like into adulthood, your whole life. So I think we're very much aligned. Like we are all about developing the soft skills, from creativity to empathy to communication. And really we do it through art and music and freedom of expression.
And look at the rise of TikTok. Last year, for the first time in 20 years since the debut of Google, TikTok.com became the most visited website in the world, ahead of Google. That's an amazing thing. And there's a platform where anybody can get creative. You're seeing these 90-year-old grandmas doing stuff and putting things together and putting clip arts and stickies and things and having fun with it. And it is, video and whatever combination thereof and whatever else you want to, add to that video is a form of expression now, and for people to be creative, and it's working. People are, putting stuff out there thinking, 5 people in my family will see it, and then it's viral.
Yeah, I think that it was Adobe. The research was saying that the boomer generation, only about a third of boomers felt creative or felt like they valued creativity or that others saw them as creative. Then millennials is about like 45, half. Gen Z is 2/3. And it's 2/3 that view themselves as creative, but even more like 70% that want others to see them as creative. So I think with social media, Instagram, TikTok, there's more and more pressure actually to be creative or for others to view you as creative. So yet another reason I think for employers to invest in, soft skills and it's a soft skill academy and 20 muses that develop these skills that give people the confidence for expression. Because that's actually where society and culture is, drifting toward. And I think Gen Z would find that if their employer were giving them tools to actually access creativity and be more creative in the workplace, that is, an employee value prop that would actually make Gen Z more loyal to the company and increase retention.
That's right. And now you've mentioned soft skills several times and the gap in creativity. What other soft skills are you seeing very much a need for, that people need to further develop? You mentioned empathy as well. Can you give us a little more context or other soft skills that you see, or is it just all of them?
Personally, I think in my 20s when I was in finance, I was not very patient or empathetic. I think being a mom really was the first time I had to be patient and empathetic, like literally putting yourself, right? Trying to understand how someone else is feeling who can't, he just crying and can't communicate. And I think empathy is a huge buzzword these days. And I think it's a skill that needs to be developed. Like I have definitely become more empathetic, like the longer I've been working as a mom. And I think it's definitely something that a team can work together toward. I think just facilitation now is like such an important skill that can be learned, right? Like before, if you're the manager hosting a meeting, no one would say like, oh, you are not a great host. Like that was not necessarily a big skill before. Maybe like charisma was like a soft skill, subscribe to like leaders and managers. Now I think like virtual Zoom facilitation, that presence, I wouldn't call it charisma, maybe but like Zoom presence, virtual presence, it is something that can be learned. And I think that's these kind of tips of like, making sure you call on the introverts, what they think before the extroverts take up all the space, and, making sure everyone, you do the icebreaker and everyone speaks, take a round of speaking in the first 10 minutes. Those are real skills that I think is embedded in like presence and facilitation. And all of those I think can be trained and learned.
So on that topic of can be trained and learned, if you had, if this was the platform, right, and you had the big megaphone, you said, hey teachers, hey educators, hey managers, hey executives, what do you think people should be learning? What's the message for all of those people out there that are tasked with training and developing individuals? What's your message?
Well, I think the message would be very different for like educators of young kids versus employers. And actually, I want to bridge that gap. Like, when we talk about bringing art to the workplace, I feel like we're still kind of like early. Like hopefully 10, 20 years from now, it would be so common that every Fortune 500 company would have an art program is like embedded into their wellness program or lifelong learning program. If you're talking about for kids, no one would put their kid in a school if the school didn't offer art or music or science, right? Like it's unanimous that art is good for kids, music is good for kids, science is good for kids. For educators, I think my message would be just let kids play more, just let kids be kids, like they have such a long, if you like now that we're in the future we're working more flexible hours. If you look at the kids, they're still kind of stuck in the old ways, like being sitting at a desk 8 hours a day. Like the kids are still being prepared for the past of work, So I think education needs to change in order for kids to embrace a future work where there's going to be more flexibility and innovation. It's not about like FaceTime sitting at your desk. For employers, I think is to let your adults be more like access their inner child and, be more childlike, like bring art and music and science to the workplace, like recess, right? Like adults need more breaks. The same things that kids need to thrive, actually adults need it too. We've just been so stuck like in the cubicle of like a certain way of working. And I think there's just, there's so much written about like how to take more breaks, it's really just recess, right? Like we need art and music for inspiration and for like stimulating the mind. We need more breaks for relaxing. We need to go play outside more and like get more exercise. So in both ways, I think, kids can be, one thing that I was thinking, I love to know what you think, how we always ask kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And actually, I was thinking that phrase is like a phrase from decades ago when you were preparing someone to grow up to do one career only, right? That's why it was so important to like choose your career. Like if you're going to be apprentice somewhere, if you're going to, go on this track. That was back in the day when it was very difficult to change careers. Now, I think that question, it actually puts artificial pressure on kids. A lot of kids are afraid to answer that question because it's asked in such a way that it sounds like there's only one right answer. What do you want to be when you grow up? and kids are afraid to answer that because what if they answer the wrong way? So I think kids, we should ask kids, like, what are some things you want to do when you grow up? It could be many number of things. Create games, like be a developer, be an artist, be a writer, like start a business, like there's no wrong answers. And in fact, there should be multiple answers to that question. And the same for adults too, to believe that their career, that they can be flexible and then their social mobility and that they can really do anything that they put their mind to.
And you brought up a couple of key points. I mean, one of the things, yes, when a child first enrolls in school, that, pre-K, kindergarten, early elementary school, art, music, and, sciences, as well as English and histories and things and civics, all this sort of stuff, that is part of the standard curriculum. But by grade 6, there's only a few states that formally support SEL, social emotional learning. So it all stops. Everybody starts getting conditioned to get away from that level of inspiration and thought creativity and the latitude to be able to do things differently. It's like, here's the problem, get in the tunnel, go solve it. Show the formula, show how you did it, and you just march down this singular path. To your point then, that when you're asked, what are you going to be? Well, I can be this one thing, but the question should really be broadened. What are the things that you like to do? What are the things that you don't like to do? Why do you like those things and not like these other things? What drives you to try to help that young person, or even an older person who's been stuck in just trying to figure it back out and reinvent themselves? What is it? Tease it out. What are those strengths that you have? What are those interests that you have? That passion, that purpose? How do you bring that forward and put that front and center? That's what people have to get into.
Yeah. And I think that's all being challenged and changing because of the creator economy. Right now there may be like 50, 100 million creators. One day there would be out of this world, like, maybe 2 billion, 3 billion people who are like creators, like semi-professional creators. And I think because right now the line between your work and your passion and hobby is like, it's blurring, right? There's just more ways to make money out of your hobby by being a creator. I think education, there's always a huge delay, right? I think the education system is preparing kids for the past of work and not for the future work. And it's up to all of us to, I think, shape, education so that it can actually prepare them for the reality that we're in now.
So one of the signature questions that I have is a fill in the blank. So what do you think the world needs more of?
I think the world needs more playtime. Adults and kids, more play.
I like that. So, Jing, as we're wrapping up here, I appreciate you being here. Any, final comments that you have for the audience, things that you'd like to communicate, other ideas, things that you'd like people, to remember, like coming to your event in the city to work together or things like that? What do you want to share?
Yeah, just, if you're in the future work or you're passionate about imagining work, like join our community on Upstream, the future work community. If you're in New York, stop by Custom House Fridays at lunchtime, 12 to 1. If you want to know more about how to bring inspiration for your team, whether it's lifelong learning or for a management offsite or a one-time team building, to bring art and music to the workplace for connection and culture, just reach out to me. I'm at jing@20muses.com and I'd be happy to chat.
Fantastic. So with that, we'll say bye to our audience and people catching it on the replay. We'll catch you here next week, every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time for the STEERus Weekly Grind. Thanks, Jing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.